This is the warm-up for lesson 6. So take a second and do this. What should we do here? We can distribute. Six times 1 makes 6. 6 times negative 4 makes negative 24x. That equals 198. We're going to subtract 6. Subtract 6. 192 equals negative 24x. 192 divided by negative 24 divided by negative 24, and we get x equals negative 8. This other side, when we're multiplying by 3, well, when I distribute a 3 to 3/8b, my 3's are going to simplify out, so it just makes 8b. Same thing with negative 11/3. My 3's will simplify out, and I'll get negative 11 plus 7/3. So there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. If we were to multiply everything by 3, that would get rid of this thirds here. A little shortcut. So if I multiply the entire equation by 3, I'll get 3 times 38. So negative 114 equals 3 times 8 makes 24b. 3 times negative 11 makes negative 33, and 3 times 7/3 makes positive 7. So now we can simplify. We've got negative 114 equals 24b. Negative 33 and 7 make negative 26. We're going to add 26 to both sides. And we get 24b equals negative 88. Divide by 24, and we get b equals negative . Well, let's just leave it as 88 over 24. What goes into both 88 and 24? 4 does. Does 6 go into 88? No. So we can divide both those by 4 and say that's, what, 22 over 6, and a 2 goes into both of those. Negative 11/3 equals b. Skip one more questions. Today, lesson 6, multi-step equations, day 2. We want to remember from previous lesson that we're going to ask ourselves what is happening to the variable, and then we're going to solve for the variable by working backwards through the order of operations, meaning we're going to undo addition and subtraction and then undo division and multiplication using inverse operations, so that what undoes subtraction is addition, what undoes multiplication is division. So we've got some examples here. So our example, what's happening to our variable? Our variable is being divided by 2 and it's being subtracted by 3. So we're going to work backwards, so I'm going to undo the subtraction first. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. I still have my variable divided by 2 equals -1 now. What's going to undo dividing by 2? Multiplying by 2. So I multiply both sides by 2. My 2's simplify out. That's what I want to have happen. And 2 times -1 is -2. Our next example, we've got a fraction out in front. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. First, we can multiply this entire equation by the denominator so that we're not dealing with a fraction anymore. And so here's what I mean by that. If I've got a fraction out in front, I can multiply this entire left side by 4. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I multiply this side by 4. Now because this 3/4 is going to eventually get distributed through, I only need to multiply this 4 times the 3/4. So what is 4 times 3/4? Those 4 simplify out, and I'm left with 3 times the quantity x plus 2 equals -4. Okay. Now it's just like any other problem. I can distribute a 3 and get 3x plus 6 equals -4. What's happening to my variable now that I've gotten rid of my parentheses? We see it's being multiplied by 3 and being added by 6, so we're going to subtract 6. 3x equals -10. Divide by 3. So x equals -10 over 3. Now, there's another way to do this. The other way to do this is just to distribute my fraction. Distribute my fraction. So I've got 3/4 x plus 2 times 3/4. Well, for those of you who have trouble with this, 3/4 times 2. What happens with those 2's? 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 1 once, and so those simplify out. So I'm left with 3/2. So that's 3/2 equals -1. So now I'm going to do the same thing. What do we want to do? We can subtract 3/2, subtract 3/2, so a little side problem here. -1 is equal to how many halves? -1 over 1 equals how many halves? Well, what do I need to do to 1 to make it a 2? I need to multiply by 2, so I need to multiply this by 2 as well. Multiply by 2, so -1 times 2 is -2, right? -1 equals -2/2, right? So this is -2/2 minus 3/2. So what's -2 minus 3? -5/2. So 3/4 x equals -5/2. What's the inverse of multiplying by 3/4? Dividing by 3/4, which is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. What happens over here? They simplify out, they become 1's. X equals, this can simplify here, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 twice. What's 5 times 2 is -10, and 1 times 3 is 3. So either way we'll get the same thing. Now, getting rid of your fractions, to get rid of fractions, you just multiply by the denominator. I could have got rid of my fractions over here too, but I was showing it to you with fractions. So Two different ways to do that. One way is to get rid of the denominator by multiplying by it. The other way is to just deal with the fraction. Dealing with the fraction gives you less steps. A lot of you might want to get rid of the fraction though by multiplying by the denominator because it makes you not have to deal with too many fractions. So why don't you guys try this one? So if we look at this, our denominator is a 3. So if I multiplied both sides by 3, that should get rid of that denominator. So multiply 3 times my left side, 3 times 10, and I get 30. 3, and this 3 will simplify out, and I'm left with negative 2 times 4x plus 5. So we just got rid of that fraction there. Now we can do this just like we normally would. We're going to distribute, and so we get negative 8x minus 10 equals 30. And now what's happening to my variable? It's being multiplied by negative 8 and subtracted by 10, so we're going to add 10, negative 8x equals 40. Divide by negative 8, divide by a negative 8, and we get x equals negative 5. Our homework is homework 6.